Hello, 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 and so we continue our journey through the David Sylvian discography with Gone to Earth. This is the reissue from 2019, different sleeve, gone for, like I say, more monochrome portraiture, and restored as a double album. Because there are many versions of Gone to Earth. Many? No, there's a couple of versions. Many, couple. Original release 1st of September 1986. Now, it was Gone to Earth that opened up David Sylvian for me because of, I've got to get this right, because of this, which was taken from this. Right? Because on one of these, is it this one? On this one, Gone to Earth is on here as a B-side to the single. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's from the album, and so checked out the album again. Back in the old days of CDs, this is where it gets really. This is the real anal stuff. The original CD pressing left off, I think it's 4 of the instrumental pieces. Yeah, so yeah, it's not very good. Yeah, it dropped Silver Moon over sleeping steeples, campfire, coated country, bird of prey vanishes to a bright blue cloudless sky, and sunlight seen through towering trees. Reducing the album into a 68-minute, 18-second edition. So you're missing quite a bit of it. Again, for those who aren't in the know, the album is a double album, and it is divided into 2 very distinct halves. The first half is more your David Sylvian material, where he is singing. There are songs, and there are some good songs on this one. Whereas the second disc are instrumentals. So it is a game of 2 halves. It's an experimental record. It's experimental, and yeah, it's quite interesting. So yeah, the album, the song side of the album is probably his most cohesive work, I believe. Brave of you to say. And it builds on what's gone before with Brilliant Trees, and has quite a few guests on. So you have the featured artist on guitar, Steve Jansen's back on drums, Phil Palmer's on acoustic guitar, Ian Maidman on bass on 3 of the tracks, Kenny Wheeler's back on flugelhorn, Bill Nelson's on guitar, Richard Barbieri's on here. Mel Collins plays saxophone on 2 of the tracks. BJ Cole that does pedal steel, and so yeah, it's he has guest artists on here too, and he's very generous. This is what stands out from this, is the generosity displayed by David Sylvian. So it opens with Taking the Veil, which I think ended up being like a lead single off pretty odd when there's Silver Moon, and well, that was the second single, and even Riverman probably would have made a better single than that. And again, the songs are very reflective. They're very atmospheric, enigmatic tracks. Gone to Earth, the title track, is a co-write with the featured artist, and I think is it's great. It's a really good, it's a really strong track. Very interesting guitar line on there, which always reminds me of "Isn't She Lovely" for some reason, the melody line. And yeah, and hearing this band in concert. You can hear it on the Damage LP. I should have pulled that out as well. You do hear, I think it's Riverman, and some of his other solo pieces, Blackwater as well. I think that's from his Japan Get Together album as well. So yeah, I mean, I think the songs on here are very, very strong. I think they're very melodic, very memorable, and I really enjoy the lyrical content. I get a lot from these songs. I enjoyed it. But yeah, then you've got this second disc of instrumental. It's all instrumental stuff, and like I say, you know, Sylvian writes the majority of this, but he allows the guest artists to shine. So, you know, Bill Nelson has his bit. He does a co-write. So does the featured artist on 2 of the tracks. But I think again, it's very generous to have like a second album of instrumental stuff, where, you know, the Sylvian voice takes a back seat, and these instrumentalists are allowed to come forward. Now, I've always wondered, again, because I'm weird, what the album would have been like if it had been structured differently. If you have the songs, but they are interlinked by the various instrumentals, you know, knitting the album together, you know, so you don't have this 2 distinct phases. I've always wondered if that would have worked, if there was a way of doing it. No, I'm not anal. I haven't sat down and come up with a playlist for that. But I always thought that was quite curious, that, you know, as an alternate version of Gone to Earth, they could have somehow turned it into one rolling like album with those instrumental pieces acting as interlinks between the songs. That would have been really interesting. No, I think it can be done. I think there is a way of doing it. And I always thought that would be, you know, an interesting take on the proceedings. But for me, Gone to Earth is his best album. It's his strongest album. It's his, even though it's an album of 2 halves, you know, it's his most cohesive album. I believe. You're welcome to disagree, and you probably will do. But I really like this record, and again, I think because, you know, going and seeing Sylvian and Fripp at the Royal Albert Hall, hearing this, and then having the singles and that, and again getting the album, it marks a place in time. You know, that's another reason why I like this. Again, music is very much rooting you to a time in your life, isn't it? That's what music tends to do for a lot of us. So that's another reason why, you know, I find this great. Though again, it was unusual to get the CD edition, the original CD edition, and rediscover it when it was reissued in the it was reissued in 2003. I forget. I had to remember that. With everything restored, but there was also some remixes in there as well, which was unusual. So yeah, I never really. It's only with this reissue now that I've heard it in its proper, you know, context, because there was all these extra bits added. You know, a couple of extra remixes added to the CD reissue back in 2003. But yeah, they did. I mean, again, I imagine there'll be some people who are upset by the original artwork going. It doesn't bother me. I'm not precious about it. I think it's, with this reissue campaign, I think all but one album was altered, and, you know, they've made them all, you know, link together with Sylvian's face. So yeah, we'll do a show and tell. Again, this is from 2019, and yeah, there's a whole new artwork and photography. Again, we'll say for the fans there. Sounds lovely. It's a lovely sounding record. A lot of space in it, and again, it's it comes from that interesting time in the 80s where record companies allowed their artists to be experimental and to do, you know, material that you wasn't expecting. It kind of, yeah, I think it just takes you back to that time where people were doing, you know, interesting things. And this is, I think it's a really good record. I really like this one a lot. So yeah, and again, it's really odd to get, you know, such a very distinct collection of vocal songs, and then to just add, you know, 30 or so minutes of instrumentals, which are, you know, part ambient, I suppose. Yeah, I think again veers more onto the ambient stuff that we see on the Alchemy album. It kind of, you know, follows in that style. So yeah, it's a really weird, and we can file this under progressive. It's for its time. You've got to remember when this was. This was 86, I believe. You know, it's pretty out there. You know, releasing a double album, nearly 90 minutes long, 90 minutes long, and it being two very different things. Yeah, so absolutely fascinating. Again, the next one up is, of course, Secrets of the Beehive, from the following year, 87. We'll be covering that. And again, this is, yeah, it's more of the same. It's him not being as experimental, but we'll talk about that in the next video. Hopefully you've enjoyed all of this. I'm sure you'll tell me if you haven't. Anyway, I've been talking about David Sylvian's Gone to Earth, released all those years ago now, back in 1986, his third solo album after departing Japan. And yeah, I really like it. I've got a lot of time for it, and it's suitably weird and experimental, ambient, and the vocal songs, you know, I really like. And yeah, and of course it feeds nicely into this and the Damage album as well, which I think you should all check out. Yeah, so thank you for watching. There's only one more thing left to say, and by now you should know what that is, and that is prog on.